countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, it is now time for more of the Last Comic Shop Podcast!
Woohoo!
Very bombastic.
Indeed. We are opening up the shop to newbies to help them find their way underneath the comic book tent.
And normally, we read a book, we rate a book, and we recommend other books for the oldies as well to help them keep up with what they should be reading, what they shouldn't be reading. But this week, slight problem. I didn't read, nor do I think I can rate.
What?
Yeah.
I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson, and I am outraged at my co-host, Chad Smith, who says he didn't read a book. Did my other co-host, J.A. Scott, did you read a book for this week?
I did, and I was going to suggest that we all read it, and I was so excited to talk about it. It's this Western comic created in the Franco-Belgian bande dessinée tradition, Blueberry by Jean-Michel Charlier and Jean Moebius Giraud. I can't wait to talk about it.
We read that already.
Yes, my brother Ethan Larson is correct. We already read that book, J.A. It was several years ago. We told you, hey, we're going to read Blueberry. And you were like, no. You did something. I don't know what it was, but you missed it.
I'm so glad you chose it, though, because it's one of my favorite books.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We shouldn't tease the hell out of it. We should let the listeners listen to that past review, right? Let's go down in the archives. Let's go down there. Let's get that thing fired up. We will listen to our past review of Blueberry.
Hey, what's better than doing the thing you're supposed to do? Phone it in.
Who doesn't love Franco-Belgian Westerns?
I love Franco-Belgian waffles.
That's the Franco-Belgian waffles. That's the Pittsburgh one. Played for the Steelers.
And they put French fries on top of it.
That's right.
In the classic Pittsburgh tradition, just take a normal food and dump French fries on it.
That's true. Any case, here comes our review of Blueberry, Volume 1. I don't recall, actually, whether this was, like, truly the first volume of Blueberry that was ever done by Moebius and that Jean-Michel guy. But I know that this was one of the first volumes that was released in the United States through the Epic line, and that's why we chose this. It's called Chihuahua Pearl. Ethan, before we tune it up, why did you like Blueberry?
Blueberry is very much like John McClane. He's a talented, but he's like a man out of his element. He goes down to Mexico looking for Confederate gold and gets like brought into this huge mess of a problem, and he's not prepared for it whatsoever. But fortunately for everybody reading, he keeps all of his clothes on. So maybe for the lady readers, you might not get a little, sizzle with that steak, but it's good action, man. That's why I loved it. It's just Blueberry is such a human hero that you can't help but empathize with him.
Oh yes, he definitely has foibles. So without further ado, here's me and Chad and Ethan talking about Blueberry's foibles in depth. Well, howdy, partners! Welcome back! Run over there to that hot wagon there, Chad. Get us some of them victuals. They're there. Old Cookie, he's cooking them up right down there. We got pork and beans. And
I never knew you were such a Stagecoach fan. No, I don't remember this.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Westerns. And I'm Andy Larson, the host with the most, and an all-Western show.
And this week in particular, you gave me this book, this hard-edged Western tale, but unfortunately, the character's name kept reminding me of a skit from 15 years ago in a state where a guy dresses up in a blue suit and has a big blue wig, and he wants to host a children's program, and they ask him, why do you think you're qualified to host a children's program? He's like, well, I have a decade of experience in children's television, I have a lot of enthusiasm, and I look like a blueberry! And the guy just loses his crap. It goes off, and that's all I can think of throughout this entire book.
But yeah, you're right that the book that we're covering today is called Blueberry. It's from Europe. It's a European comic book. And in Europe, they didn't have the seduction of the innocent and all that stuff that happened in the 50s that kind of made every single comic book publisher just run to capes and wholesome tales of morality and everything like that. They continue to have sci-fi comic books and spy comic books and Western comic books still proliferated very heavily in Europe. But real quickly, Ethan, you're a big fan of Westerns.
Yes.
Like, do you have a particular favorite Western movie?
I like The Searchers without all the racism.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's actually
That
where
is
I got my
true.
name from. My mom loved that movie, and the guy's name was Ethan, so I was an Ethan before Ethan was popular.
I had a film class in college, and they said that was the best movie of all time, The Searchers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
John Wayne.
It is. And it's John Wayne's best picture because
And was
he's
it John Ford, too?
it's a very, very powerful piece, but it's probably John Wayne's best film. What any other ones, Eve?
Tombstone's really good. I need to get more into the Clint Eastwood, because I haven't seen any of those.
Oh, those are so good.
Where he eats all the eggs.
Well, that's Cool Hand Luke, and that's Paul Newman.
Oh.
He's in a prison.
Okay.
No,
I
like
thought Clint Eastwood ate all the eggs like Ron Swanson.
No, that's no. But we could talk about Westerns for a really long time and Western movies on this show. But we are a comic book podcast, and we've got to get to the business of talking about comics. And we have one on today's program that is a Western, so Blueberry. It's a Western, and it went on for several volumes. But on today's program, we're reading Volume 1, which has Chihuahua Pearl? Chihuahua Pearl? Really? Maybe I was adding different letters.
You do that.
I do. That is one of my things. Chihuahua Pearl. So
Yes.
Little Dog Pearl is what
I
it's
kept
called.
reading it as like Chattahoochee. So that,
Chattahoochee Pearl is fine.
yeah.
Chihuahua Pearl.
Okay. A couple other things before we go too far. You said this went on for a couple of volumes. This didn't just go on for a couple of volumes. This series started in 1963 and has continued to go on till 2012.
Yeah.
Cow.
Yeah, and so it's written initially by Jean-Michel Charlier or Charlie or whatever, and drawn by Jean Giraud, who's more commonly known as Moebius.
And that's one of the main reasons we're reading this book, to be very honest. When Ethan brought it up and he was like, let's read a Western book, and he said Blueberry, the only reason I said, yes, let's do this is because it's got Moebius art. Because Moebius is a name in the comic book industry. Whether you've read Moebius books or not, he is somebody that's really well known for his graphic style, especially from the European theater. Not a lot in the United States. Like, the only book I can think of that has Moebius art from the United States is Parable. That Stan Lee Moebius 2-issue Silver Surfer thing. But he was on Heavy Metal. He did The In-Call.
In-Call, that's
The
it.
In-Call. So
I call it
like,
Mezcal, but that's something else.
yeah.
And I was going to say a couple other things, too, that I thought were interesting. Not only did this go on for a long time, but one thing you mentioned before, the character's name is Michael Blueberry. He actually was born Michael Stephen Donovan. He picks up the name Blueberry.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't.
So that's his nickname.
Not
All
like
right.
Gregor Grandpappy Blueberry. But the other thing, too, going back to Moebius didn't actually use the name Moebius here. He used his real name, Jean Giraud. And this was his meal ticket. This was his super popular book that he continued to do, not because he loved it per se, but because this cashed the checks.
Okay.
And this book is why Moebius was able to go out and do all that other experimental stuff, because he had steady income from Blueberry. And Blueberry was so popular. I think it reached its peak, it says on Wikipedia here, back in the 1980s. But it was a staple in the French comic industry.
Right.
Okay.
Some of the stills in that are just gorgeous. Like, I would want to just take one of his frames that he drew and just make it into a poster. Just like his use of color and shading. It's just
Yeah, we'll talk about the art in just a second, because I agree in some ways the art is fantastic. I don't know so much about the color. We'll get to that in a second. Let's give really quickly a 10-cent synopsis of Chihuahua Pearl, the first volume of Blueberry. Basically, you've got this guy named Mike Blueberry. He works as a U.S. cavalryman, and he runs afoul of some guy. I'm trying to think of his name. It escapes me at the moment.
Yeah,
because
right,
pretty
right.
much everybody in this book's name escapes me. We'll get to that in my opening comics. But anyways, he runs afoul of kind of a Mexican bandito who's chasing somebody across the border. It turns out this person has some sort of secret note, and Blueberry kind of gets pulled into this scheme by a general who finds out that there's this guy being held in a Mexican prison who knows where $500,000 worth of Confederate gold is stashed. Which actually technically belongs to the U.S. government now because the Civil War's over. And it was kind of squirreled away in order for the rebels to basically maybe mount another or pay for another civil war.
Or when the South would rise again.
Exactly. So he kind of puts Blueberry on this secret mission to go find this guy so he can find out where the gold is. As a result of that, Blueberry becomes like an outlaw. Like they have to kick him out of the service. They have to frame him for murder so that the Mexican authorities don't get too suspicious of him. And as a result, everything just becomes more complicated for Blueberry. He's not only being hunted by bounty hunters that want the bounty for him, but he's also now in like hostile territory within Mexico and trying to work out how to get this guy out of this prison. He meets this beautiful showgirl named
Blonde lady?
It's the actual Chihuahua Pearl, I think.
Yeah, right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, he ends up rescuing the guy, and they end up going to some cave. And that's where, like, this volume is only the first 2 books.
Yeah.
So even when you get to the end of this first volume, it ends on a cliffhanger. You don't know where the story is, and it's like pick up the next volume if you want to find out. And so that's pretty much the 10-cent synopsis. I will say that I kind of was a little miffed when I got to the end of the book. There was no sort of resolution whatsoever. I was like, it was 100 pages of a lot of dialogue. And I don't know if that's because of the translation. I mean, I know it was originally done in France, and I think they did this via Marvel's Epic line. I think this is where this particular translation came from that we read. But, we'll go ahead and get some initial thoughts, and I know my brother hasn't talked much. So let's go ahead and give him an opportunity to say what he thought of the first volume of Blueberry.
The biggest thing that I really liked about it and thought was refreshing was like Blueberry's kind of like a dipshit. Like like you're so used to reading westerns where the hero is just an absolute like badass and can handle every situation. Very little allies, but he has like 10,000 adversaries. Somehow he weasels his way out of it, but he still screws up. He gets betrayed a lot. He's kind of gullible. He's kind of just thinks he's smarter than I think he really is. But yeah, like I enjoyed it. It was definitely a page turner for me. Again, like I couldn't care a lick about half of the characters who were there. I just knew it was like, okay, there's random bandoleros, there's random governor, which is the main adversary. But I liked seeing like how Blueberry got himself into situations, how he was going to get himself out. I think the one thing that kind of miffed me was like towards the end, you could see like a little bit of romantic flame with Chi-Chi, and I don't know, like I thought that was a little bit forced.
Okay.
But overall, like I said, I really liked it. I think this is kind of like my bag. Like I really like westerns more as like prose. Like I read a lot of Louis L'Amour short stories. I've read Ombre, and this just kind of fell right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I was going to say that Blueberry does seem to have kind of a Han Solo type quality about him, in which like he's just kind of, you could see how like if they had filmed a movie called Blueberry, you could see Harrison Ford playing Blueberry, which he just kind of falls ass backwards into good luck sometimes and bad luck.
Confidence than competence.
Right, exactly.
Right,
and he's
absolutely,
just trying to he's moving on to his next, like, hey buddy, how you doing? Like
that is actually a fantastic comparison because Han Solo is very much like that. Kind of lucks himself through situations more than skill.
Absolutely.
He seems more clever than he really is.
Blueberry doesn't want to know the odds.
All right, so now we've got Ethan, who kind of liked this book, and we're going to now move to Chad, who didn't like this book.
Unlike Ethan, I cannot say this is my bag. This would be very much so not my bag. There's a lot about this, and this is where my big dumb American prejudices come into play, where I feel like so much of this book emanated that European flavor, which was weird for me in a Western, because I felt like, oh, it's like Kool-Aid and chocolate, or Kool-Aid and clams.
Right.
It just doesn't mix.
Yeah.
There was something about it that was just a little bit off to me. So the character, as we talked about, Blueberry is very charming, and as he Han Solos his way throughout the story, that's fine. But it was just like, oh, who's trying to get Blueberry now? And it was just somebody else every 3 pages, trying to enact this plan, but he escapes and moves on and moves down the road, and somebody else tries to get him, and then he escapes and moves on and moves down the road, and lather, rinse, repeat. And as far as the art goes, I felt like, as opposed to some of the superhero books that were out at the same time, that were larger and more bombastic, and you had that Stan Lee dialogue to them that was very over the top, and the action sequences, those Jack Kirby, that house style in the 60s, was so over the top. The Moebius art is a lot more reserved. It's also more detailed and realistic. It was tough because they went with the smaller panel structure, and some of the things, the way they structured pages didn't make sense to me. And I just chalked that up to the European translation. It'd be the very bottom third of a page, and they'd start with the next day and have like the panel where people are riding into town.
Yeah, sometimes I got to the point where I didn't know which panel to read next, and I'm sure and then I was like, oh wait, that's supposed to connect with this one. The bottom left is supposed to actually go with this storyline. Almost I totally empathize with that.
But I know Moebius is this big time, dude, for lack of a better way to put it. But at the same time, I don't know if I get it yet, is basically what I'm coming at here. And so there was a lot that I didn't get. And when it comes to the coloring and the shading and all that, boy, do I wish that Moebius had not done that. Because...
Yeah.
See, I was the opposite. I kind of dug it. I thought it went with the theme of the book.
I'm just going to jump in here and say I wish that this book was done in black and white. I very much, really? I wish it was just pencils and inks, because I feel like most of the time the colors were just slapped on there. Whole characters are one color, orange with a blue background. And there's no 4-color anywhere. I don't know if it's American comics or not, but it's just I'm used to seeing all the colors actually make sense. And this is just no, we don't know what color to make this. We'll just make them all green and put them over in the corner. And I'm I don't know what that is.
Right. I'm looking at one panel where it's the first panel on the page. One guy's purple. The guy standing caddy decor hit to him is a light blue. The other guy is orange. And then you get it out into the background, and people are starting to be colored in. And there's a lot of how this was colored that just it didn't make sense in my robot brain.
But I think that he's trying to go for that, the styling of those old Nashville posters, where it's you have the block coloring, and then you have the coloring that goes into each other.
It's very possible that that's what they were trying to do. I just think it looks lazy. I maybe it's a stylistic choice. But for me,
no, I knew exactly what they were going for. It was definitely they were trying to go for an old Western theme.
It actually reminded me of Season 2 and Season 3 of the original 1960s Spider-Man cartoon when Ralph Bakshi took over, and he basically had no budget. So basically he would do foregrounds and backgrounds, and he would put them in one color. Why? Because he didn't have animators. He didn't have somebody coloring it. So he's just whatever. Nobody's going to care about the backgrounds or the foregrounds. There's tertiary characters other than Spider-Man. So I'll just make them all purple, and I'll chalk it up to an artistic thing. And I'm no, this just looks lazy. This just looks you can't really decide what colors to make these things. So you just I'm just going to stop with this guy and just make them all blue.
I totally disagree, especially when it comes to when the sun sets and the dawns. He uses different color shading. It's purposely done to emulate a certain style and make you feel or emote that this is an old Western type comic.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Is it a stylistic choice? I can definitely see it as an artistic style. You were talking before about the 4-color palettes of the comics back in the day.
Yeah.
And Ethan was noting the shading in here, and the shading is more complicated than the Marvel comics we would get back when this was originally published. But there was a part of me that wished either the colors were flatter or they were more consistent, or even, as you said, in black and white. I felt like I could have possibly appreciated this a little bit more.
Okay.
It's not that I couldn't see the transitions there, but what I'm saying is I don't feel like those transitions helped a lot of the time.
You thought they were distracting?
I thought they muddled the overall picture. Like, characters are basically canceled out by the colors sometimes, the way that they're presented here. And so I would much rather they have gone with a simpler, flatter color base. Once again, that's all a style. I feel like this book is talking in French, and I am, listening in English and being like, huh?
Well, I won't lie. This was kind of a slog for me to read. Again, I thought there was a lot of dialogue, and maybe I'm used to Silver Age books, which this is. It's a Silver Age book. And if you read old Stan Lee, there's a lot of dialogue in all of those Silver Age books. So like, it's not that I mind. It's just like there was way, way too much dialogue and not really enough action. And the action that was portrayed was, I think, to Chad's point, very subdued. Like, it happens sometimes off panel. I think the best scene in the thing was when they rolled the cart full of dynamite, and then they put all the herds full of cattle and break the guys out of prison. Like, they used that as the way to bust down the prison walls so that Blueberry and the one guy that knew where the Confederate gold was could escape. That was very, very well done. And I also liked Chihuahua Pearl. I thought she was beautifully drawn in every single panel she was in. So, like, I get those things. But not only was there too much dialogue, but there was too many characters, none of which I cared about. I didn't even care about, like, the drunken old guy that was hanging out with Blueberry and trying to help him, even though he should have been, like, the comic relief and somebody that should have added some levity and some lightness to the story. He didn't.
Yeah,
like, he was barely on there.
Yeah, and they glossed over that secondary character, too, his buddy, whatever. He tells the drunken buddy to go get some other dude, and then the other guy's there, but he kind of mixes in with Trevor. He kind of looks almost exactly like Trevor.
Exactly.
And then all of them look like the Confederate soldiers that are... And
You're right.
Somehow they're working with them at one point, which I don't know.
The only characters I know for certain actually exist in this book are Mike Blueberry, Chihuahua Pearl, old drunken guy, because he's different than everybody else, or the Mexican governor, because he was drawn differently, the original general that sends them on their way. Even the Mexican banditos, they all look the same. Like, it was really hard for me to determine, like, who was who. Right. And I don't think the color helped. I don't think any of the dialogue helped, and nobody was fleshed out. So this was a real slog for me. For 100 pages, I felt like I didn't know anybody other than Mike Blueberry, and I'm sorry, that's just not enough for me to care about a book, right? This story was about Mike Blueberry, but there was tons of other stuff going on, and you had to know who those people were and care about them, which they didn't do a good job of doing. I'll start off with my final grade, and then we'll go around. My final grade for this is a D. Well,
ouch.
It's all right, fine. C minus.
If you got the D, own it. Like, obviously, that's how you feel. So
this only is saved because of the Moebius art. This is not a book I'll ever read again. I'm not going to read any more Blueberry. I don't think I like this at all. And if it hadn't been for Moebius art, if somebody else did the art, it would have been an F, because I didn't care about anybody that was going on in this. Ethan, what's your grade?
This one captivated me. I guess it was the Western motif. It captivated me in a way that I didn't expect at all. I would give it a B+. I'm almost to the point where I'm like, did we read the same book? Because it read pretty fast to me. Like, I got pretty interested in the character. I wanted to find out what happened. I think they did a good job of setting up cliffhanger after cliffhanger and trying to see how Blueberry lucks himself out of this situation. Like I said, he was kind of a dipshit, so he was more relatable than a lot of other Western heroes. I like the fact sometimes Westerns tend to lean on action so that they don't have to develop anything.
Yeah, not this.
No. Whereas I actually appreciated the less gunplay and more exposition. I don't know. Like, I'm used to... Hell, I tried to read Lonesome Dove, and I liked it, but the main character kept talking about his carrot too much, and I was just like, I can't read this anymore. But it's just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph of descriptions of the same, outhouse and bed, and so I'm used to. I kind of appreciate that level of prose and detail. I don't know. I know that there's when you're dealing with the visual, you don't really have to let the prose speak as much as when you're reading a novel. You can lean on the art, which I thought the art was fantastic as well. So yeah, my final grade is a B+, and like I said, I think we read two different books.
All right, fair enough, Chad.
Okay, and I will agree with both of you. I think that this book is a European B+. But let's stop and think about it for a minute. Europe sucks. It was the worst of the vacation movies.
Ouch.
People don't speak the right languages there. And
So
we have to take the European B+, and we gotta translate it into English. We gotta get that then into pounds or whatever. So that brings it down to about a C. And then from pounds, we need to convert it once again to US dollars here. So I'll give this United States C-. I feel like I could see that this is not terrible and there's an audience for it. I know I'm not that audience, and there's stuff here that I don't understand. And I feel like there's a part of me that doesn't want to understand, and I would be happy if we didn't read more Blueberry ever again. And there's a part of me that's like, but I really want to understand how comics work, not just here, but the Franco-Belgian comics and all that stuff. This seemed like a really, really subdued Western. And I feel like a lot of Westerns, I struggle to stay awake through the end anyway. With how subdued this was, if this were a movie, it would have lost me very early. The book lost me early on. And so I feel like there's quality here that I haven't unlocked. Maybe someday I'll get there, but it's not today. C-.
All right.
I mean, just saying real quick, like, I think that the exposition almost reminds me a lot of, like, the old Western, like, TV shows that my dad used to watch, or our dad used to watch, Andrew, where, like, they didn't I don't know if they had the budget or just had the constraints of television, where they couldn't really do a lot of action scenes. So it was a lot of, like, exposition, a lot of people talking to each other, and not a whole lot of action.
Right.
What are those? What's that show that he used to like? The one that?
Oh, come on! There was Cheyenne.
Cheyenne
There
Bodie.
was Death Valley Days. There was the Life and Times of Wyatt Earp.
Yeah.
There was
Wasn't there one
Gunsmoke. There was Wagon Train. There was Bonanza. There was so many. My dad loved Westerns. But yeah, no, this is not a TV show with you have a limited budget. This is a comic book in which you can draw anything, and Moebius has shown that he can draw anything. So like, again, like, I don't know why, unless you were just like, this is a long story and we have to stretch it out as long as we can, why not throw a couple more action sequences? Or at the very least, not even the action, make characters more interesting and unique. Because that was the big thing for me. To your point, all of the Southern people looked the same. All the banditos looked the same. There was like 5 characters in this book that were like, yeah, those are real characters, and I understand them.
I didn't see the fun here.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I felt was really missing. And maybe they have different fun in France. I don't know. I'm not saying I couldn't stand to learn. But...
And we're back. That was, I should have been on that show. Now I read this book for nothing. For nothing!
We tried to tell you. It's okay, Jay. Now you have an opportunity right now to give us your in-depth analysis of Blueberry.
Yeah, what did you think of Blueberry?
Let's go to commercials.
All right. We'll be back with more of The Last Comic Shop and some brand new material, guaranteed. No reruns for the rest of this show. Great stuff right after these commercial breaks.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast and their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Naruto, all things that we love, all manga that were originally published in the legendary magazine Weekly Shonen Jump.
But not every series can run for 300 chapters and have a hit anime. This is David.
This is Jordan.
We're the hosts of Shonen Flop. Each episode we look at manga that ran in Jump that didn't quite make it.
We discuss what it did wrong, what it did right, how the series could have turned itself around, and ultimately, was it a flop or not?
We're on all your favorite podcast apps, and you can find us at shonenflop.com.
Keep on flopping, floppers.
You know what I think? This world we're in right now is the fairy tale. And what's really real is on the other side.
Ramsey, mechanic by day, aspiring comic book creator by night, went into the woods and tripped. He was bombarded by bizarre and mysterious glyphs that he drew into his sketch pad and onto the body of his muse, Regina.
Oh, groovy! Your art is crawling all over me.
Shit. What is going on with you?
What's going on with you? All of a sudden, you're a complete drip, baby. Maybe you need another limb to the head. Ah!
Bloom, written and created by Ted Sikora, with art by Butch Mappa.
How are you feeling, Ran Man?
You've never experienced a story so astonishing, so far out and away from the beaten path.
Where in the am I?
Blast off with Bloom, the origin of a prophet. Order yours at herotomorrow.com.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for a game. That's right. If you didn't think we were done slacking off this week during the summertime, you would be absolutely right, because we are not done slacking off. We just decided to fill up the rest of the time on this week's show with a game, and it's one of our favorites. It's Scenarios. That's right. For those folks that may or may not listen to The Last Comic Shop often, basically the game of Scenarios is we've got our host with the most, J.A. Scott, and he is going to be giving out scenarios, things that people might be able to do, like, I don't know, who would be the superhero best equipped to paddle a canoe? I don't know, who would be the best to paddle a canoe? Groot. He could create his own paddles. I'm already looking.
Forearm from the Mutant Liberation Front. He's got those extra arms.
Canoe Man from Canoe Land. There has to be some kind of Jason. Isn't he in a lake?
Yeah, Jason from the Friday the 13th. They threw him in a lake. Yeah. He spends a lot of time around canoes, Camp Silver Lake. Any case, regardless of which one we pick, we're going to throw out these ones to J.A., and J.A. is going to pick the winner. And then the person with the most wins at the end of the game is declared awesome, and we'll get the rest of the summer off. Bullshit. I'm going to let that happen. Unless it's me, then it's just then fine. But regardless, the only rule with Scenarios, to just remind everybody, is once somebody throws out a character, you cannot use that character for the rest of the game. So even if in the first round, somebody picks Batman, even though he's the best at everything, cannot be used for the rest of the game. So without further ado, let's turn it over to J.A. Scott with his first scenario.
All right, the first scenario is, what comic book character would be the best to run a diner?
Ooh, to run a diner. All right. Gentlemen.
I'm ready.
I guess I'm ready, yeah. I got a good one.
Why don't we kick off with Chad?
All right. I'm gonna ruin everybody's day by busting out one of the big guns here early. I'm gonna say Firestar.
Oh.
Let's face it, she's getting older now, but she's always been a classic hottie. Even though she's been taking up smoking and her voice is a little bit more grizzled now. She can nuke anything in seconds, and you know you're gonna keep going back to that diner, if only just to see her in that yellow suit.
Yes.
Cooking up hot cakes or warming up your coffee or doing whatever it is she needs to do for nice tips, but keep your hands to yourself, Buster. It's not that kind of establishment.
Does Iceman bring the ice cream? Like, is he the frozen foods man?
He shows up, once a week. Hey, everybody.
He's like the Schwann's guy.
That's right. It's like the 1930s. They still get their ice delivered in one giant block But Iceman Bobby Drake busts out.
All right, Andrew.
Oh, I'm going to take this guy right off the board right from the start. That would be J. Jonah Jameson. He would be the best to run a diner because, Parker, I need pancakes! Come on! Chomping on a cigar, sure, it's unhealthy, sure, it's unhygienic, but here he is, he's running it. All right, what do you need a slide of eggs, 2 sliders on the go. What are you doing here? You know, he knows how to work in a high-pressure situation. Have you ever watched The Bear? Come on now. You need somebody like J. Jonah Jameson running that kitchen, right? Just stay out of the kitchen. Stay out of what he's doing. But you need somebody that can be able to command people, and that's what J. Jonah Jameson does.
That was terrible. Well, who knows more about high-pressure situations than somebody who has had to cook for a crotchety billionaire for the past 90 years? That's right, I'm talking about Alfred, the perfect person to run your diner. Somehow he cooks all the Wayne's meals, has been their trusty butler, and on the side he can solve some crime while he's working in the back when on the slow nights of the diner.
And parts Med Express. People could just come in and, get stitched up and get a burger.
You always want your diner hostess to be able to sew a wound when you need it. So put some stitches in, you're good to go.
All right, J.A., you got 3 choices. What you going with?
I do like Alfred, though I think he would be better served at a pub or a tea house rather than a diner. See, he's higher end. I thought J. Jonah Jameson would be a horrible person to run a diner. Who would want to eat there? So it's got to be Firestar, simply for her ability to nuke everything and make it hot.
You know she's making it hot. That yellow costume, it's all made hot.
Alfred could run a country club like a motherfucker.
Yes.
He could run a country. Does everything.
Mr. Wayne, it depends on which one you're picking, too.
Jeremy Irons, the most swag out of all the Alfreds.
Wait, you're going to say he's classier than Michael Caine? Get the out.
It's not classier.
Michael Caine.
Whatever Michael Caine does, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on, J.A.
Okay. Who would be the best person to host SNL?
Have you read that Marvel team-up issue?
Yeah, you can't get that anywhere.
The not ready for primetime players?
It was for charity. That's something I learned on the last comic shop. Oh boy,
there you go.
First. Fine, I'll throw something out. Evidently I might lose this one too, but I got something. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's start off with Andrew.
All right, yeah. So I'm gonna go with Mystique. I was trying to think of a shape changer because, when you host SNL, you're going to be thrown in a bunch of skits where you have to be a lot of different people, right? And unlike some, funny people that can change their shape, like Impossible Man or something, I'm really going with, the whole Christopher Walken vibe. You remember when Christopher Walken would be on SNL and, he's a serious actor, but then, he would be so great because he'd be so deadpan. He's like, I need the more cowbell, or these cactuses have the googly eyes. That's the good stuff. And so I feel like Mystique, given how serious she is, how deadly serious she can be at sometimes, I feel that kind of dichotomy with comedy would be really good. Plus, I know right. J.A. likes her, so
can't hurt. Can never hurt.
All right, Ethan.
So what's more important on SNL than when you're a celebrity host and you bring in other celebrities to host along with you? You think of the Kirsten Wiig episode where she brought in all of her celebrity friends, John Hamm, the whole laundry list of people to be on the show with her. So I'm going to go with Jimmy Olsen. He gets good writing. He's a perennial goofball himself. He's a lovable loser, but he can also bring in Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. The whole Justice League will be there. So ratings will be sky high. Just a great pick. So Jimmy Olsen.
All right. Chad?
That was a tough one because I was trying to turn around and find somebody from my comic collection here behind me. I'm going to go with Dick Grayson. Okay, now hear me out. To excel on SNL, you need to be a 5-tool player. Dick Grayson is a 5-tool player. He can handle the pressure of being out there solo and doing the monologue and having fun. But he's also great in ensemble casts. He's handsome. He's charming. I do say Paul Rudd-esque with Dick Grayson. I think he could handle that workload, and he could, come out in a 70s era disco costume. He could come out with a ponytail. He can do whatever he wants, and he's going to charm you. The ladies are going to love it. And speaking of celebrity guests, oh my goodness, who's more connected than Dick Grayson? Maybe Jimmy Olsen. But no, he's my pick.
I did like Jimmy Olsen. I thought that was, but you need someone that's interesting as well, and Jimmy Olsen is just plain boring. What makes him interesting is his friends.
He turned into a giant turtle. I mean, come on, man.
Maybe I'm biased because I hated that Jimmy Olsen book we read. I hated it.
I should have known the judge. Damn it.
Yeah. And Dick Grayson, he's good, but he's a bit PB&J. So I'm gonna go Mystique.
See,
I love the idea. I love the idea of SNL is all about wearing different wigs.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
Kristen wigs.
Hey, can I ask you, would Jughead have won?
Ooh, Jughead would have been a good one.
He'd have been distracted by the food cart.
All right.
He challenged Chad. That's the.
Jimmy Olsen was a good pick. Too bad.
That was a haymaker. He was on the ropes for a second.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Too bad J.A. hates Jimmy Olsen.
Again, I should have known my audience.
All right, next one up. Who would make the best community pool lifeguard?
Oh man.
I mean, there's only two choices, right?
There's really one.
No, why not? I don't know. There's a couple, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's start off with Ethan.
To Aquaman. What are we doing here?
The one with the hook hands?
What are we doing here?
You going Jason Momoa?
Yeah, definitely, because he's handsome and he'll bring the ladies to the pool. And we always need ladies to the pool. So Aquaman, Jason Momoa.
It is going to bring in those suburbanite moms. They're going to be styling and profiling for that pool party.
You need the MILFs. Call them Momoa. That's all.
All right. Chad.
Oh, man. See, the real choice is Namor. Or Namor, as the MCU called him. I mean, looks great in a Speedo, commands attention. Namor tells you to get out of the pool. You are getting out of that GD pool. He's not messing around. And the ladies are going to love him. Mastery of all things aquatic. Great lifeguard. Namor.
All right. Andrew?
All right. Well, I'm going to go a little bit off the beaten path and say Hydro Man. That's right. The classic Spider-Man villain, Hydro Man. Because they took the two obvious answers, so I had to think outside the box. Hydro Man is great, because you know what community pool lifeguards are? Usually they're pretty skeezy. And so, you know what? Hydro Man skeezy. Real skeezy guy. Plus the fact, if anybody is drowning, he can just empty the pool immediately. Or if there's like a candy bar, that Baby Ruth that falls in the pool, he can just empty it right there. Still good. You take a chomp of it. Hydro Man, it's great. Come on, I didn't have any other choices. They took Namor and Aquaman.
If it's Hydro Man, that whole pool is just going to be pee.
Couldn't you at least have done that liquid dog from Darkwing Duck?
Liquidator, that's the same dude. Except he's a ski. He wears that black muscle tee. Come on, he's so skeezy. It's great. Community pool operator.
I think he cleans the pool. Not.
I was disappointed. I thought you would think outside the box a little bit. Yes, Mr. Fantastic would have been a great answer. He could just stretch out and pull people drowning out of the pool with his arms.
What do you mean? He's distracted all the time.
That's what Hydro Man can do. He doesn't have to move. He controls water with his mind. What the hell are you doing?
We're gonna go with the Momoa.
Let's go.
A little bit dangerous. Namor's usually more clean cut.
Yes.
Wow, tied all up now. Everybody's got one. Going into question 4.
Question 4. Now, this is a bit of a two-parter, so you can't just name a person. You need to come up with what the attraction would be. Who would run the best county fair attraction?
Oh, wow.
This is where J. Jonah Jameson would have come in handy.
He's already working at the diner. You can't pick him.
But he's such a carnival barker. Like, come on.
I've got one.
I guess I have one. I don't know. I'll have to. Let me go last.
I definitely have one.
Okay. All right, Chad, you're up first.
All right, so this one, you chastised me last time for being a little bit on the nose. This time I'm going to go on the forehead. I'm going to go with Bullseye. I think Bullseye'd run a great carnival booth. One, he's evil as all get out. You need that. You're going to be in the carnival. Two, he's capable of, setting up all the trick shots and showing kids how easily it's done. But in reality, it's not that easy to get that done. They're tricks for a reason. So Bullseye can rake in that cold, hard cash. You know he's a killer. He's going to take those kids' monies and not send them home with any teddy bears whatsoever. But they're going to keep trying because everybody wants to best Bullseye. They see that goofy grin on his face and think, oh, I could beat that. I could beat that. You're not going to beat that. Bullseye.
And again, you get Colin Farrell's sex appeal, too.
There you go.
Ethan.
So when you think county fair, you think a little bit sketchy, a little bit gross, and you think about terrifying as all hell. So who is the best person to run your carnival attraction but Scarecrow? And he's running the Field of Screams. We're just picking the dough right now. You want to terrify some teenagers out of their cotton-picking minds? Well, you got to go Scarecrow all the way, baby, because he's going to scare some kids. He's going to scare the pants out of those kids.
This is, I think, a two-horse race just between Chad and Ethan, just because I'm going to pick Optimus Prime because he's going to run the tractor pull. Yeah, why not? He's going to run the tractor pull. He's going to get the Autobot that's a tractor. I don't know. Is there one that's a tractor? Sure, why not? He'll find him, and he'll be like,
come on down to the Autobots, the tractor pull parade, 2 shows daily.
He's huge. The kids will climb all over him. I wanted to use Stan Lee, but I knew you wouldn't let me because he's not a comic book character. I wanted to have Stan Lee in his Mary Marvel tent. But, I knew you were going to, say, nah, he's not fictional.
You've been buying Mr. Miracle issues all week. You can't go Funky Flashman?
I used Funky Flashman the last time, and he gave me the thumbs down. So, Optimus Prime, maybe. Whatever. I like their 2 answers much better anyways.
Yeah, I think Chad hit the bullseye with Bullseye.
See, it's not on the nose, it's on the forehead.
That hurt my heart a little bit.
I liked your Scarecrow, Ethan.
But I did like the Scarecrow.
Yeah,
that's totally
that would be
county
a scary
fair.
funhouse.
That would be that's perfect for the later summer, early fall, where you've got the hay bales and oh yeah.
The pumpkin patch stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I still like Optimus Prime.
No, that was horrible.
Yeah, you're the only one on that one, buddy. Sorry.
I think actually Stan Lee was somehow worse, but
everyone else has rolled out after that one.
All right, Chad's got a commanding lead with 2 going into the last question.
Who would make the best scrapbooker?
What?
Okay.
I have a good pick.
Yeah, I'm okay. I have one.
All right. I think I have one. I don't know if we've used them yet or not. That's a hit.
Okay. Well, I will let you know. Ethan, why don't you lead off?
All right, so I want to start off with a quick callback to one of my favorite What If episodes of all time, of all the podcasts that we've ever done. But it was basically somebody had brought up the idea of Aunt May being a figment of Peter Parker's imagination, like Tyler Durden. That was fantastic. So I just wanted to say that by prefacing my answer of being best scrapbooker is Aunt May. As long as she knows that Peter Parker has been Spider-Man the entire time. Because she's been taking news clippings of him, doing all of his crazy antics. She's been putting it with little, stickers that she gets at Joanne. She's making this really nice book. And then she finally, when she unfortunately passes away, she leaves it to Peter, and he finds it in the book, and he realizes that she knew that he was Spider-Man the entire time. So it's a perfect plot setup, and
that would make a great issue. That would make a great issue. She knew all along, and she made him the scrapbook that she left for him in the end. She saved all his clippings. Remember when you were saving the world there, Peter? I hear some wheat cakes.
Remember when I was boning Dr. Octopus? I was really just effing with you.
Yeah, there could be like heart bubbles of Otto Octavius in there, that little like page or two. You could add that in. A little Golden Bachelor action. It's all good, you know.
All right. Andrew.
Well, I'm going to take this one step further because this is a person that actually does know the secret identity of the person that she's involved with, and that's Lois Lane. Because what is the Daily Planet other than a big scrapbook for Superman? It's like, here, Superman went and did this. Superman went and did that. You don't even need to put it in a book. You can just go back into their back issues and just be like, remember when Superman stopped that airplane from crashing into that skyscraper? Yeah, you don't remember that? Well, guess what? I wrote a story all about that. So yeah, no, just look on the microfiche.
I like the callback. Microfiche Kitty, for those of you who don't know, is this old-timey.
But yeah, no, I mean, Lois Lane would be great for that. Plus, done lovingly. You know, she loved Superman. She loved Clark. She always made him look good in those articles to sell those papes. So yeah, Lois Lane. It's not hypothetical. She knew. She wrote it. It's there. Microfiche.
Chad.
Okay, so to be a good scrapbooker, you always have to be attentive. You always have to be up on things. You always have to be looking for creative angles. And I think my guy is great at all of these things, although the end result might be a little bit dark. For whatever reason, he's obsessed with black and bats and cowardly lots. But Batman would be the best scrapbooker because he has notes on everybody. Every mission, every activity, every weakness, every possible foible, any way to take this person down in the event they were to go rogue, Batman has it in his scrapbook. And sure, there are little cutout bats all around and, you know, little cat women drawn in the panel margins. But sure, you know Batman's got some puffy stickers down there. He's got his glitter guns. He's got all the scrapbooking tools that somebody's going to need. And even if he doesn't, he's got Alfred back there. Be like, why, Master Bruce, why don't you try this glitter pen? Providing all the appropriate supplies. He's got unlimited resources, seemingly unlimited time, and an unhealthy obsession with everyone around him. That all adds up to the best scrapbooker. It's Batman.
There. Did you see my page about the kryptonite? There it is. I used green. Clark. That's all I wrote you. Oh, come on. Don't let Chad win, please.
Well, I think I do like the idea of Batman as a collector because he does. You look at the Batcave and all it is a collection of stuff that he's got a giant penny. He's got the dinosaur. Who would want the scrapbook of Batman? That would just be too dark, man. I can't.
I like how this is going.
I do like the fact that Lois Lane has just been essentially scrapbooking forever. But I do also think that that's a bit of a cop-out to say that she doesn't need to put anything together because it's just on microfiche. Though bonus points for bringing up microfiche. It's got to be Aunt May. Everything's coming from a place of love there. So
yeah. She's the old lady. You are with the old ladies.
Yes.
That's who scrapbooks. You're like, you might as well have been like, who's the best Sudoku player? Come on. This.
Oh, that's a good question, but
tiebreaker.
Yeah,
the tiebreaker will not be Sudoku. The tiebreaker between Ethan and Chad is who is the best at preserving fruits and vegetables. This is the summer edition.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
I already know my answer.
Okay. All right.
Can I help vote on this? I don't have.
Yes.
I have a terribly biased stake in having Chad lose. So. Oh, you win everything.
All right, Ethan.
Well, who's the most well-known botanist in all of DC Comics? It's Poison Ivy, of course. So she knows how to preserve anything as far as, fruits and vegetables go. She knows their molecular compounds. She knows everything about them. Poison Ivy. It's the obvious pick.
All right, Chad?
We're preserving things. We need somebody with a lot of spare time there. Maybe her husband's always distracted, tinkering, outside in the negative zone. Who else would be better at sucking all the air out of the room because she has the power to do that sort of thing, I'm going to go with the Invisible Woman. She's just there while Reed is distracted off on his adventures. He's like, all right, we'll get these strawberries together and, using her force fields to smash them down and then, cook them over the stove in a nice, add some pectin so it stays gooey. And I don't know what pectin does, but she does because she's very smart and she needs something to occupy her time while everybody's distracted. And maybe she calls in Johnny to, heat this up. She could also remove all the air from the scenario for an accurate preservation. So things are really going to stay. You're not going to get any microbes or germs in there. What place is cleaner than the Baxter building? There's no better choice but the Invisible Woman.
May I say, though, Poison Ivy does have access to some Mr. Freeze who can help her freeze things.
That's what I was going to say. I don't nice to see you.
Well,
They were in the same movie. And besides, Chad, if Sue Storm wants something to do, she's just going to that community pool that's run by Namor.
That is true. That is true. She's not slaving away in the kitchen with jars and some pectin. Bonus points for bringing up the pectin, though. No, it's Ethan for the win.
Congrats. Larson's won, that's all I care about. And all you should care about is listening to more episodes of The Last Comic Shop. That's right, we're going to be here the rest of the summer with brand new episodes. That's right, all the rest of the summer. Great stuff coming up. We still got, the Deadpool movie. That's going to be coming up in a couple weeks. And well into getting close to our 200th episode later this year. So make sure you're reviewing and subscribing over at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com so you never miss any of the episodes, because they're going to be great. You have my personal guarantee.
I guarantee Batman would kick Aunt May's ass when it comes to Scrapple.
No, man. Next time on Scenarios, it's going to be who's best at antiquing.
Also Aunt May.
She bought that stuff when it was new.
So I just want to say, I didn't realize that you guys were coming up to 200 episodes. Just all legit. Awesome job, guys. Congratulations on a huge milestone for all of you. And, you guys have been producing quality content that you have to smash that 5-star review for. I mean, come on. Give us some love. Give us some rep. Whatever your podcasting platform is that you choose, please give us a good review. It really helps us out. And if you all like what we're doing, please subscribe. Our episodes are all evergreen, or at least we try to do as much as possible. So, if you like our show and you want to keep listening to us, go back to our archives, download some stuff. This episode of Blueberry was from, 5 years ago or something?
Yeah.
But it's still quality content that you can, take in. And this stuff it outlives us all. So
there you go.
Yeah.
And that brings us to this week's recommendations, which we didn't have time for. So in the spirit of preserves and all those other things, how about just actual blueberries? Just go out and eat a fruit for once, kids.
They're in season. They're right there on the bush.
It's a great on pancakes, too.
Oh, yeah. Blueberry smoothies.
Yeah. Think about that.
Can you get that at the merch store, J.A.?
Only if it comes with the ability to reheat them through Firestar.
Blueberry cobbler? That's fantastic for the diner. There we go. Now we're talking.
There you go. Bring out Bobby Drake. I want mine a la mode.
He doesn't make ice cream. I mean, it's not like he cranks milk.
He's on mega level. He can do what he wants.
Oh, he's churning. He's doing the churn.
We hope you do the churn with more Last Comic Shop. Until next week, I was the host of the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith, J.A. Scott, and the wonderful Ethan Larson. We hope that you stay safe, stay cool. It is the summertime. Find a pool, jump in. And remember that if you go to that pool and Hydro Man is your lifeguard,
you're just swimming in pee.
Yeah. See how warm the water is.
The Last Comic Shop podcast was a 2024 Black Angus production.